but you are more than welcome. I'll also say a few remarks about about what we've been doing over this last year and what we're hoping to do. We've got another one, Daniel Ross, Cycling UK volunteer. Yeah, so thanks. And then I'll introduce Annette in a second. So the Merseyside Cycling campaign have been.
Eddie, could I ask you? Could you mute all, because there's a lot of crosstalk.
It's not me that can do it. I'm not. It's the person who's hosting the meeting, I think.
Can Andrew do it?
It's all going wrong, apparently.
Andrew can make you the host.
I said, we're in your mum and dad. And the internet keeps going, in case you didn't wake up. In case you wanted to leave.
Who do you want as the co-host?
Or whoever's coasting, can you just mute everybody except the person who's speaking or whatever? I don't know if that's possible to do.
I don't think that's
I
possible.
think if everybody just mutes themselves, that will be easier.
That would be the easiest thing, yeah.
The host can mute everyone. The host can mute everyone if you look at all the options.
Yeah, I mean, because we will be having like a discussion later on where we can unmute. All right. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Yeah, good. Okay, so so the opening remarks are just really about what we've been doing as a campaign. I mean, we started off with the year and we were going to look at launching our Made to Move Merseyside campaign. And the idea of this was really to try and persuade Merseyside to do what Manchester was doing, because Manchester had a plan, the Made to Move Manchester plan, and we wanted Merseyside to have a plan. Manchester was clearly very far ahead of Merseyside, and we were looking at having a conference and things like that. And we had been working on that for a while. Then COVID hit, and COVID was, on the one hand, that we couldn't really go ahead with the conference idea, but it also meant that suddenly money became available to the councils to actually put in infrastructure, and they've been putting it in really quite quickly, partly because, I mean, a lot quicker than you perhaps want it to in an ideal situation, because you want to take more time. But in some ways, like we've actually seen more cycling infrastructure go in the last few months than we've seen in years, even though it's been done in a sort of temporary way, and that's partly to do with the way the government funding has been organised. So that's the main thing we've been doing really this last year, has been supporting the councils in this, because obviously there's always going to be some backlash, and we've been trying to work with them closely on that. So that in the short term, it's basically just, I guess what we're trying to do is just support the councils as they're putting infrastructure in. In the medium term, I think we want to look at things like stuff that's going to happen over the next year or so, things like livable neighbourhoods are coming in, and we'll get stuff to speak about that a bit. And then in the long term, I think we do want to have a proper long-term strategy. So Greater Manchester's Made to Move strategy identifies £1.5 billion over 10 years, which if we were to do that on a per head basis, and it'd be interesting to listen to Annette's talk about this, because it would be £55 a head just on cycling infrastructure and walking infrastructure per year, which in Merseyside would be £800 million. But their plan has like about 15 different items in it. And so I think that's where we're looking at. And one of the things we want to do is we want to think about how we're going to campaign to get the infrastructure put in. And we're working on politicians, we're working on officers, we're also trying to work with other groups. So this is why it's great to have all these different groups with us. And also we want to work with the media, and we want to work with the general public. We want to sort of like think of all these different things. And I think particularly working with other groups, it's been what's happened this year that's also been very encouraging. Is Don Ayers will take a lot of credit for this, because and Friends of the Earth, they led on writing letters to the councils in support of the infrastructure they were putting in, and they managed to get a very broad range of groups supporting the infrastructure going in. So it wasn't just the usual groups. It wasn't just, as Don says, tree huggers and cyclists. It was a broad range. They had Extinction Rebellion, and they also had the Merseyside Civic Society. And I would like to see that sort of work continue. I'd like to see, because I think our agenda, Merseyside Cycle Campaign's agenda, our vision for Merseyside, which is for walking and cycling as being part of a sustainable transport network with benefits for everybody. I think that should be a vision that's shared by as many organisations as possible. And if we can broaden that, then I think we broaden support for it. And then I think it's just that will really put the pressure on the decision makers to make the right decisions. So I think that's really where I'm going to stop on, and I think that's probably a good point to introduce Annette. Annette is from Greenpeace and the Transform Transport campaign. Is that right, Annette?
Yes.
And I think I sat in on another meeting where you did a presentation before, not long ago. So anyway, yeah. So just I'll hand it over to you then, and I will mute myself if I can.
Okay. Can you either make me a co-host, or can I think Andrew G, I think I sent you my presentation, but I've got it here. So if you can make me a co-host, I can share it from my screen.
You should be able to share your screen anyway.
Okay.
You should
It's
be
the
able.
green button at the bottom.
I've checked, and you should be able to share my.
Share screen. Yes, absolutely. Got it. There we go. Bingo. Awesome. Thank you. So, hi everybody. I'm Annette. I grew up in Switzerland. Spent the first 25 years of my life there. I am also a keen cyclist. I have cycled extensively, especially around mainland Europe, in Switzerland, France, Germany, and the Netherlands, countries with slightly better infrastructure than here, perhaps. I am also a Greenpeace volunteer speaker, and today I'll give you a brief overview of the national picture of transport in the UK. So we'll have a look at the transport system as it is, the environmental impact, what the government is planning to do, and what additional changes we need to see on top of that. So as you know, the current transport system isn't working. We are very much following the American and Canadian model of people traveling vast distances just to get to work and to go to the shops and things like that. And this is getting worse. Car ownership is rising. People are buying bigger cars and driving them for longer distances, and this is becoming normal. Over the past 30 years, transport traffic has risen by almost 30% in the UK, and nearly a quarter of all the new cars in 2019 were SUVs, which are the biggest and most polluting cars you can possibly get. And meanwhile, the UK structure is still lagging behind Europe's by several decades. Part of this is because transport options mean that many people don't have a choice but to drive. If I wanted to get to my workplace, it would take me 2 hours on public transport. I've looked into the bus timetables, whereas by car it takes me 30 minutes door to door. Since 2010, over 3,000 bus routes have been cut, leaving especially rural areas without bus service. Fuel duty has not increased in the past 10 years, but rail and bus fares have, which is again driving a lot of people to car ownership rather than using public transport. And as you know, we have very few decent cycle lanes, by which I mean cycle lanes away from motorised traffic, segregated so that they are safe to use. And this puts a lot of people off cycling in the UK. On this graph, you can see the UK's total CO2 emissions in the past 30 years, set against those caused by road traffic alone. And as you can see, although the overall CO2 emissions are falling, possibly partly because a lot of our manufacturing has been moved abroad, the road transport emissions have flatlined because there are now more cars on the roads and they are driving further distances. So at present, transport is the single largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the UK. And this is a major problem because the only way we can stop climate change is to reduce overall CO2 emissions from all the different sectors of the economy as far and as fast as possible. As we've seen during COVID, there have been quite a few changes. COVID has highlighted some of the environmental impacts. In cities, we have noticed that with fewer cars on the road, the air has been visibly cleaner. It has been quieter. We have seen an increase in wildlife, even in urban areas. The central government put hundreds of millions of pounds aside for local councils to install temporary cycle lanes like the ones you have mentioned in Merseyside, and to widen pavements and close some residential streets for traffic. And as a result, there has been a real cycling boom. Some bike shops actually ran out of stock during COVID because so many people turned to cycling. But not all of those changes have been positive. And since we've come out of lockdown, many people have started to commute by car instead of using public transport for fear of catching COVID. And congestion and pollution levels have now got virtually back to pre-lockdown levels. As a result, there is a real risk of car-dependent recovery, even though every survey shows that people want the UK to come out of the pandemic cleaner and greener than we went in. People do want to walk and cycle more. They do want less traffic. They do want the freedom to leave their cars at home. They just don't know how to do that. So what has the government done? It has promised 2 billion for walking and cycling in the current budget. And it has also confirmed several big rail upgrades. This is not HS2, these are proper, sensible big rail upgrades. And it has also agreed ending sales of petrol, diesel and hybrid cars by 2030, which is a big step in the right direction. On the other hand, it has also promised to spend 27 billion, so over 10 times, on major new roads in the next 5 years. They are looking at building about 4,000 miles of new motorways and A roads between now and 2025. And if that goes ahead, that will be disastrous, not just for our environment, but also for the way we want to live in the UK. Because it will make traffic in towns and cities worse, because it will encourage more people to drive. You know the old adage that if you build more roads to prevent congestion, it's like a fat man loosening his belt to prevent obesity. It just does not work. So what we would like to see are giving people real transport choices instead of wasting billions on new roads. So we would like to see reliable, affordable bus service, especially in those rural areas where there is no alternative, electrifying the rail network, increasing capacity and cutting fares, making roads safer for everyone by repairing potholes, reducing speed limits and building segregated cycle lanes, which is particularly interesting for us. And also rolling out more low traffic neighbourhoods to make it easier to walk and cycle for short journeys. So we're looking at getting to closer to that Dutch model of the 15-minute town. And also investing in broadband to make it easier for people to work from home where that is possible. So here's a picture of cyclists on a super cycling highway in Copenhagen, Denmark. It was taken 2 years ago. This is just one example of the sort of infrastructure that places in Europe have built for cyclists, and obviously it encourages much more people to travel by bike. So what we are looking for in terms of budget nationally is we want at least 10 billion a year of additional public money for sustainable transport. So this would include 3 billion a year to provide free public transport for people on lower incomes, 6 billion a year to expand and electrify local and regional bus and train services, which would reduce carbon emissions, and restoring those routes that were cut and switching buses and coaches to zero emission power. And we want at least 4 billion extra over the next 4 years to deliver the government's existing target of doubling cycling and increasing walking in England by 2025. So among the benefits, we would be seeing creating new jobs, actually delivering all of those changes in infrastructure, regenerating local communities across the UK, improving public health and thus saving the NHS funds and resources, and ensuring fair access for travel for people on lower incomes and job seekers who rely more on public transport. So I've got 2 links to share with you here. I've got a link to our Greenpeace transport campaign, which has a petition attached to it. I'll pop that into the chat for you. And I have also attached a link to the Netherlands-based YouTuber, Not Just Bikes. I don't know if any of you have come across him. He's from Canada and he relocated to the Netherlands a few years ago, basically because he was sick of the transport situation in Canada, and he wanted his children to grow up somewhere where there is a proper cycling infrastructure and where people live and work in a much smaller in much smaller distances. So I'll pop both of those onto the chat for you, and that's all from me. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yeah, me. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I've got a question. That 10 billion sounds great. Who would be left to? Would that be left up to councils? Would it individually to spend that money? And would it? You suggested the model. There's no model set in stone. I guess that would be for local councils to discover their own models. Maybe, I don't know.
At the moment, we're just asking for the money to actually be set aside for it, and how it is then distributed will have to be discussed. But yes, ideally it would have to, some of it would have to be given over to local councils.
I just don't feel like all local councils have the expertise to effectively put that money into cycling. You know, we've all seen it, haven't we? The supposed skate parks that are just a ramp and a bit of concrete, and you know, this money does often get wasted, I think, when it is set aside. So it would be sad if that was achieved to see that happen.
That's true. I suppose that is where groups like yourselves come in, and where you would actually be able to offer your expertise.
Yeah,
I agree, Liz. I agree with those sentiments, Liz. And I think you're right. It's up to groups. And you've seen a lot more activity, as Eddie's alluded to already, from yourselves, from Friends of the Earth. And I think the cycle campaign, I think looking at this screen this morning, I think we've got at least 6 people from the Cycle of Life, which demonstrates that there's an awful lot going on at grassroots, and we just need to bring that to the fore, to the politicians. We need to knock on the door of the politicians every day, if need be, to get them to understand that we want a life that you're talking about, you're demonstrating, and we need to get you in front, or us, with the message from you, from the message that comes from Friends of the Earth, from Transition Towns, very strong in Liverpool, and we need to take that forwards. So thank you.
Can I just make a comment? I think everything you said is excellent. It crystallizes what we all live for, and why we're at this meeting. But I think to have legs, we need to have a carefully worked up delivery that stems from the introduction of sustainable transport, integrated methodology. And we're looking at really the impact on health and the cost benefits of that, on local pollution in cities and the cost benefits of that and the health benefits of that, and the global issue of reducing climate warming emissions. So the outcomes of this is a tool. Your implementation of sustainable transport is a tool to attain multiple outcomes that you don't need to have a whole brain to understand is beneficial to mankind.
Yeah, that's the frightening thing. It all seems really common sense, doesn't it? And it is depressing that in so many European countries, they've kind of picked that up and run with it back in the 1980s. And we're still sort of banging our head against that brick wall and trying to get local councils on board, trying to get national government on board.
Can I just say, at Sustrans, we've been doing a lot of work with local authorities on network development around the NCM, but also around active neighbourhoods, Liverpool neighbourhoods. And there's an increasing amount of that going on, engaging people. And, we really want to encourage people to contribute to that. And it is quite forward ideas and thoughts on infrastructure. Some of it is very hyper-local, like the stuff in Southport. So it's hard to comment on it unless you actually live in that area specifically. But some of it is more regional, looking at connections. We are going through that process. It's an ongoing process, and our volunteers are really useful in that, in terms of giving that picture. So if you have any thoughts on local infrastructure, it'd be really nice to hear from people. I'll put my email in the chat. I'm really sorry I can't stay, because this is really interesting. I'm really enjoying the meeting, but I can't stay, unfortunately.
Could I ask, is anyone from Greenpeace, for example, speaking at COP26 next year?
I'm sure there will be. I don't know yet who will be there and how it's organised yet. I haven't heard anything about that yet, but yes, I'm sure we will be represented. It was supposed to happen this year, obviously, and then didn't.
Can you just explain what that is, please?
Okay, the climate summit, which was supposed to be happening in Glasgow this August, I believe, July or August, but obviously it had to be postponed due to the pandemic. So it's an international climate summit where basically the climate change is discussed and how to stop it.
Okay, thanks. Just a comment I'd like to make is you mentioned 4 billion of the 10 billion you want, 4 billion for cycling and walking, which would be over how long a period would that be for?
Over 4 years.
Over 4 years. Okay, yes. That's interesting, because I was working that out. That's £61 a head, I think, in the UK. Is that right? Does that sound right? I think it is, because we've come up with a figure that we basically just got off what Manchester have come up with. So I think it'd be interesting to sort of compare figures. Maybe we should do that, off this meeting. Because I think it's also interesting how what we're doing, linking that with the wider campaigns and what you're doing. And I think it's I think it was very useful your talk, because it's given us like a wider context of where this is, you know, as where cycling and walking fits in with other things, but also where Merseyside fits in with other things. Has anybody else got any other questions for Annette before we move on to, because we can also get you back in. We're going to have a few more items on the agenda before then. We'll have a bit of a wider, because we've got Sustrans in a minute, and then we've got new cyclists, and then cycling advocacy network, and then we'll have item 6 is 3 most important points to address for the future. So we can people can come back in and ask questions later on. If you're able to stay, that would be great. Has anyone else got any more questions for Annette?
Hello, Andrew Hodgson here.
Hi, Andrew. Yeah.
I just want to make a point about public transport. Strategies and policies and budgets, implementation, all very important. But the solutions, in fact, may have to be quite sophisticated. I'm speaking really from rural, where it takes an hour and a quarter by bus to get to Chester because it goes around the mulberry bush. But even if it went directly there, you're then deposited in the centre of Chester. And with all our developments being so scattered, you've then got to make your way from the bus station in Chester to your industrial estate, your shopping retail estate, in order to complete your journey. So unless you have the sophistication of a network of services from Chester around Chester to distribute people to their jobs, or perhaps room for bicycles on buses, your new rural bus service is going to be of no consequence. People will not use it because it takes too long for them to get to work. End of message. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Yeah, it is a sticking point, and I think in the long term, the only solution is that people live more closely to where they work, because our current distances for our daily commutes are not sustainable, and I include myself in that. We've somehow gotten used to traveling these huge distances every single day just to get to work and back home, and it just seems kind of daft. And there has to be a better way to integrate living and working and moving the two more closely together. But that is a long-term issue. I totally appreciate that.
Okay, are there any more questions for Annette before we move on to Sustrans? I think it's Ali going to talk from Sustrans, because that might actually be quite a good point to move over to what Sustrans are doing, I think, actually.
Yeah, excellent. Okay.
Ali, thank you very much for that, Annette. I hope to speak to you later.
Okay, then shall I start sharing my screen? And yes, just thank you for inviting me to come and talk. So I'm going to be talking on the Livable Neighbourhood Project, and yes, it is a really good follow-on, and it's all about sort of living within your neighbourhood and having everything within a short walk or cycle journey. And as I say, I'm currently working on a project in Sefton. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. Okay, have you all got that? Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so we're Sustrans, and obviously we're the charity that's making it easier for people to walk and cycle. Oh, sorry, just trying to put it down there. So we have 2 strategic priorities. One is the livable cities and towns for everyone, and the other one, which I expect most people are more familiar with, is our national cycle network, Paths for Everyone. And we believe that a livable city or town for everyone should be a place which puts social connection at its heart, is distinct and celebrates its own unique character. It has clean air and green space for all to live and play in. It gives people the ability to meet their daily needs locally, and makes it possible for everyone to move around healthily and be shaped by the people who live and spend time there. But we know in Sustrans that the benefits of our work are not accrued equitably. And so we want to make it easy for people to walk and cycle and lead healthier lives. And that isn't available for everyone at the moment. And there's some people are more likely to experience a negative impact of other travel choices by people traveling by car, and they face greater barriers to walking and cycling. So our Livable Cities and Towns projects are really about addressing these. And we're passionate about what we do. We're passionate about changing the built environment, about working with local communities, and about focusing on individual behaviour change. And these are kind of some of the projects all throughout the UK where we're trying to deliver this. I changed names throughout this, so suddenly I'm Kevin McCann here, but do ignore that one. Sorry about that one. So I'm going to be talking about the Liverpool City region and what's happening there. I'm going to be then talking about the design of livable neighbourhoods. Then I thought I would just sort of give you a real life example of what's happening. We've kind of got an online hub, which is for the Sefton, and then talk about getting involved, sort of volunteers, what you can actually do. So Sustrans are working with the Freshfield Foundation, and the Freshfield Foundation are a grant making trust. They're local in Liverpool, and they sort of made their money through the Littlewoods pools, and it's called the Freshfield Foundation because I think the Moore family used to live in the Freshfield area, and they want to reinvest in the city. Now, Sustrans have done a lot of work with them before with their sort of bike life projects, but they want to move away from research and do actually kind of concrete things on the ground. So we've got 5 key objectives for our livable neighbourhoods. We want to create high quality public spaces that prioritise people over cars. We want to create low traffic areas and remove rat running. We want to provide opportunities for better social connections, thriving local economies and more sustainable living. And I think this one's really important, should be kind of moved up to the top. We want to give people a say in the design of their streets and foster more active and empowered communities. And we want to encourage people to take more journeys on foot, bike, or rather active transport modes, reducing their carbon footprint, which really follows on well from Annette's talk. So this is just sort of a real kind of slide of Waltham Forest, which has obviously been the leader down in London of things that have happened. I could just quickly say kind of the slide on the left with all the blue blobs is sort of all the carbon dioxide and nitrogen dioxide, and on the right hand slide we can see after the active travel neighbourhood, the low travel neighbourhood, the difference, the reduction in pollution, and then these all facts and figures down the side kind of show that actually walking increased, cycling increased, life expectancy went up by 7 months, which is fantastic. It had economic benefits, reduced vehicles throughout that area, which is what we're trying to focus on. And the community were able to use their streets more. So what are our next steps then? We are working on a 3-year programme. So to date, we've had inception meetings with all the districts. And at the moment, we're just really fine-tuning and just deciding what areas we're actually going to be working in within the Liverpool area. That's going to be sort of a GIS exercise, prioritizing sort of on existing data that we've got, car ownership, the road network, and so on. And the most important thing is it's buy-in. We really want to kind of engage with the communities to make sure they have buy-in. These are new projects and they're challenging and they're difficult. We've got to get across the positive benefits. There's a lot of negativity in the press, which sort of it's all getting mixed up with the emergency active travel funds, the pop-up cycle lanes and things. So there's a lot of work to do there. And we're going to do it in 2 18-month lots. And I think community engagement is at the heart. Oops, days, I've gone up a bit. Sorry about this. Community engagement is at the heart of what we do, and getting people on board is really, really important. Thing is too is about managing expectations. So what we'll be doing on all these projects is really working with the local community, coming up with designs and actually coming up with a final design and actually report a feasibility study and a business case, which will then be presenting to that local authority. And then the next stage would then be for them to actually source the funding to actually implement the scheme. So it sort of goes in those two things. We've really got to manage expectations there. Obviously, what I've just been saying as well, change is difficult, and obviously, we're experiencing backlash already. So I'm going to go on about designing neighbourhoods now, and I've changed my name now to Julio, who is our design guru in London. So I love this picture. This is a livable neighbourhood. This is a dad just playing cricket in his with his son in just a little pocket of space that's just been created. So livable neighbourhoods, it's sort of quite hard to get the concept across. And it really is about looking at a whole neighbourhood that we've got here. Defining your outside boundaries, and the outside boundaries are going to be your sort of larger roads, your A roads that can take traffic. And it's about sort of creating little areas within that, which then are accessed from the main roads, but then you'll find that you can't drive sort of all the way across the project area from north to south to east to west. You can if you're on foot or you're by bike, but we're making the journeys by car harder. And we're just using simple things like called modal filters, and these can be things like bollards or tree planters. And I love this photo here. Bollards are not a new concept. This was it. This is a Roman one. This is obviously stopping chariots going down that little lane there. So we're just sort of reusing old design methods for sort of modern ways, you know, and it's like this. It can be really simple. It doesn't have to be really big and fancy. But what it does do is it creates extra space for people. And I think that's the important thing. It's about creating for people. And in areas, in residential areas, it's becoming really important. We've had a figure about how much traffic's increased and the movement of traffic has increased and how it moves around. In the old days, people used to get out their maps and flip those open and someone would navigate and we'd look at road signs and that would be it. And we'd go on the main roads. Now we've got Google Maps, we've got Sat Map. And the journeys are, you know, they're giving you options and they're taking you through residential streets. So a lot of traffic is going through residential streets when it needn't go. And it's not really making a big impact on the journey, on the length of the journey. And it's making people go through this kind of street, and which is not designed to take the volume of traffic. It's a residential street, it's for people. This is outside of school. You know, you shouldn't be doing a cut through just to shave 30 seconds, if that, off your journey. Now, I love this slide. This really demonstrates sort of the growth in traffic in residential areas. So the bottom line is B roads, which has remained fairly static. The top is the green line, and that's the A road. That's sort of, you know, gone up a little bit. And the same with motorways, which is the blue one. But the really significant increase, which is a 47% increase in traffic over 10 years, has been these residential areas where it's seen more traffic. And that's where people live. That's where they live. And now they've got more traffic cutting through, which is making it, you know, unpleasant for all sorts of reasons. Now, looking at the design of areas, you know, everyone's familiar with sort of, you know, just blocking off one street, and that's okay. That has some benefits. It reduces volumes and speeds, and it probably means that we can cycle down that road a lot safer. Here we are, we'll be able to go through there. But what it does happen is that really, I keep on going, it's just displacing the traffic to sort of to another area. So for one road, it's probably great, but maybe not for the next road because everyone's just cutting down there. So the whole process of livable neighbourhoods is really about this, looking at the whole area holistically. So if we say here, if you do that, it's just, you know, it's just sort of a dead end just by just doing a one street approach. Oh dear, sorry about this. So the alternative process with low traffic neighbourhoods is about looking at the whole area, and it's a holistic approach. So it's really looking about how people move within a whole area and defining that area by using A roads sort of as the boundaries. And these are the roads that are designed to take more traffic. So if you use what's called multiple mode filters, and let's just call them sort of more bollards or kind of planters to sort of block through traffic, it makes it impossible to drive straight through the area. So you're trying to cut out all that rat running. And then it brings the streets back to people. It makes the streets quieter and safer for people to walk and cycle. As I said, the traffic stays on the main roads, and they're designed to take that. And driving the short trips, which is really what we're trying to focus on, it's the short trips that have increased where really people can just walk and cycle those. And what happens is you kind of have a mode shift then and traffic evaporation. So you'll find that maybe traffic will increase at the start on the outer roads, but actually within the project area, as it is more difficult to drive, you will find that people will start to walk and cycle those journeys. And it does give you the opportunity to create little pockets of place that people can use. So people can be out in their streets and kind of feel and, you know, take ownership of them more. And it really is a good public health tool because air pollution decreases. It's, you know, the obesity, trying to get people moving. I think obesity related diseases cost the NHS 6 billion a year, and that's rising. So there's lots of benefits for it. And here we are. Here's an example in London, just sort of within a short time frame of 10 filters in 0.8 square kilometres. And we try and work within about a square kilometre. That's about the kind of size of a cell that you want to use. And just some simple ways of how you can do it. So this is the, oh dear, sorry about this, I'm on a PowerPoint. So this is the theory of it, that if you reduce the car journey, so you're switching those short car journeys are the easiest to switch. So you're making driving those journeys less convenient. And the carrot is that you're making the alternatives more appealing for walking and cycling. You know, how can I get somewhere to walk instead of to drive? And this is sort of one of the reasons. And the positive benefits for kind of everyone, for the people living in that area and sort of nationally really, it does reduce the congestion, improves air quality, and it's reducing road danger. I sort of just go back to the COVID delivery and just say this kind of fits in with sort of the overall national picture. And this is what the Department of Transport said, that the quickest and cheapest ways of achieving this for COVID delivery will normally be point closures. These can be of certain main roads, with exception for buses, access and for disabled people, and with other main roads kept free for through motor traffic. Or if parallel side streets are sufficiently direct to provide alternatives to the main road. Point closures can also be used to create low traffic filtered neighbourhoods. And I think the important thing is, and we have got this a lot, that within the project area, all properties and all businesses will be able to access their properties by car, by bus, by van, whatever. That will be possible. That journey might possibly be longer, and all the direct routes throughout the project area will be quicker if you're walking or cycling or on your wheelchair or something like that. Oops, Daisy, go back again. I'm just going to show you again, that's the slide I showed at the beginning about the neighbourhoods from Waltham Forest, and just kind of saying those are the benefits that you can get for a low traffic neighbourhood. And it is about creating a place for people. So, you know, so it's easier to walk, to cycle, better for health and for the economy too. So it's shown that, you know, there's been a 30% increase in sort of spend in retail areas and reduction in vacancies. And this is really hard for people to grasp, I think, and really take on board. People see it as just a means of stopping driving. Okay, and I'm gonna stop it there. So that's sort of the design. So what we are doing at the moment, we are actually working up in Southport, and I'll just see if I can get this up. And I just thought I'd show you. We've just started. We're at the community engagement stage of the project, which is really about listening to people. And unfortunately, obviously, have you got that one? The Southport Livable Neighbourhood? Yeah. Unfortunately, our project here kicked off just as we went down into lockdown again. So our whole programme of being out on the street, setting up meetings, etc., obviously then got shelved very quickly. But what we are going to have for all our projects is this online platform to make it easier for people to sort of engage with us. And it's about having your say. So you'll be able to do everything online. This is a tell us about your neighbourhood, and these little flags here are things that people have already said. And you can go in and you can check what people have said. See if I can do that here. Here we are, tell us about your neighbourhood. You can do the comment. You can like the comment so that we know what it is. Go back here. We need to go back now. Ooh. There we are. And it starts at the home page. We tell everyone what it is. We say what the project aims and objectives are. We've got all the tabs over here. The Have Your Say is where people can actually comment on the neighbourhood and on their street. Ways to get involved. We've got a big frequently asked FAQ section, which hopefully will sort of, see if I can get that one up for you. Here we are. So it gives the information there, and we found this really, really useful. Since the project's been launched, we've had a lot of hits on this, but obviously we're very mindful that there are people who aren't perhaps tech savvy. So we sent out by post to all the residents and businesses in the area a paper form of this so they could send that in. So we're really trying to encourage everybody to have their say. And I have to say, we are targeting groups, and I did do one this week actually to a group of the Older Age Forum, I think it was called, and there were some fantastic people there, and I hope they won't mind me saying, but I think they were definitely in their late 80s and 90s, all there, you know, on Zoom and asking questions. So that was great. We've got I'll just scroll down a bit so you can see more of the questions. What's the Southport Liverpool? Why do we need it? Which is really, and I think that's, they find it hard to understand why we need it. With a few comments we've had, why do this? There's nothing wrong with the area, but it is about that. It does tackle so many of the issues that we really do have to address. You know, the carbon emissions, the air pollution, the obesity. So they are excellent. They are brilliant. And it just goes on like that. We've got a what's on and a project background. So people can, the whole process is really transparent. This is our project area here in Southport, and it says how it's decided. So, you know, learn about that. So it's a really good tool. So as I say, for all the Liverpool City regions, we'll have something similar like this. So I'll come out of this now. I'll just say my last little bit. So there are, I think, getting involved, I think really importantly for a lot of people, this is a new concept. This is really about understanding what the projects are about and being able to talk to other people about that and really sort of promote the benefits of an active neighbourhood. There are opportunities, or there will be opportunities within the Liverpool City regions to sort of get involved. They are very hyper-local projects, you know, so if you live within that area, that's great. But we are also going to be doing something called Healthy Streets, the Healthy Streets Indicator. And Lucy Sanders in London set up the Healthy Streets. And that's about looking at your street and thinking about various things like, is there shade? Is there places to sit? Is it noisy? Is it quiet? And it's very easy for people to get involved in that. And we're going to be doing that up in Southport, and we'll be putting on some training for people there for that, which will be great. So I think I'll just finish by saying that it really is exciting and challenging times. And I think Liverpool neighbourhoods are fantastic. We're just at the early stages. And I think up here in the Northwest, we're really grasping the opportunities, particularly in Liverpool. Manchester is doing it as well. So, you know, I think soon everyone will be clamouring for, you know, a low traffic neighbourhood, because they'll be seeing the benefits, which will be fantastic. So thank you for listening. Are we taking questions now, or is that going to be later?
Thanks, Ali. Yeah, I think if we can have a few questions now, and then before moving on to the next item. Yeah, has anyone got any questions for Ali?
Could I, quick one, Ali?
Yeah.
Could you just give a very quick overview of what Lou's been up to in West Derby?
In West Derby, oh yes, because Lou's been working. That's true. Lou has been working with streets in West Derby. Sorry about that. Schools in West Derby, and that was, she started with 10 schools, and basically it was a competition for the schools to sort of come up with ideas to improve the area around their school. And she went in and she did something called our Sustrans Big Street Survey. And it's a curriculum-based activity where the school children actually go out and they find out what they like and they don't like about their street. They go out and sort of do field trips and go to kind of 4 locations around the school. And then they come up with their ideas, their manifesto, we call it, for change. And it could be something like they've identified that there's too much traffic and it's noisy and it's speedy. So they come up with a solution, and they kind of be, well, to slow traffic down, you know, not have traffic going through this area, slow traffic down by doing artwork, this type of thing. So it was looking at that. 4 schools had, and I think it was Simon O'Brien chose and the Freshfield Foundation were involved with that as well, had their designs chosen, and they sort of went ahead and did some trials, mini trials of the ideas in the summer, in July. which obviously was during COVID as well. So we have managed to keep going despite all the problems that the outer world is throwing at us. So from then on, I think it is really up to the local authorities then to actually implement these. But obviously, we then have this wealth of evidence that local people have been involved, and this is what local people want to do to actually solve the problems that are outside the school.
Ali, just to pick up on that, so a couple of questions really. One, first of all, is that the money's come from the Freshfield Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
If there was more money available, would Sustrans have the capacity to do more? Because I know there are quite a lot of communities in Merseyside, and I know that are interested in livable neighbourhoods more than are actually going to get this first tranche, because that, I guess, there's limits. But would you have more capacity if more funding was available, say from lottery or some other fund?
Yeah, I suppose we'd have to bid for it and sort of get the funding that way. I suppose you know, that is for people higher than me on the capacity, but I have to say we are a nimble organisation, and I have to say I think we do respond quickly to challenges and you know, getting people on board. So, and we have a wealth of experience too within the team that can be redeployed.
The reason I ask is because I think that may be a role for the campaign and members of the campaign, and also we'll speak a little bit more about the active network as well. That maybe that's something we can help with, you know. So that's something we can explore. Yeah, okay.
Can I ask how many areas are you looking for in each local authority? Is it just one area in each?
Just one area, yeah. So we've got the 6. It's one per area. Yeah, that's it.
And how have you already got a shortlist in each area?
We've got a shortlist, and it's just fine tuning it. Yeah. So I think that's sort of going to be after Christmas that they'll be announced. We're just sort of working on that at the moment, and it sort of also boils down to there's a shortlist, obviously, and they have to work. They have to. So we have to look and make sure that you can actually create a livable neighbourhood within, you know, X parameters. And some might be better than others. You have to have them bounded by suitable A roads or B roads that can then take the increased volume of traffic when you're reducing the through traffic within that neighbourhood. So it has to sort of fit that. And then we look at, obviously, road traffic accidents, traffic speeds, that type of thing. So that's all sort of in the melting pot at the moment, being worked out.
Can I just say we're going to have some training opportunities that we're trying to spread out for the school streets ambassadors for those schools, and so in Southport for the healthy streets. It'd be really helpful if you guys can sort of spread that word a bit and help us reach out to people. We're going to be speaking with lots of partners around that, but it'll be really helpful. I'm going to be reaching out.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you might have gone, so I thought you.
I am about to go.
Oh, you better go. I would have brought you in when I was saying about getting involved. Sorry about that.
I just wanted to sort of say hello. I'm hanging on by a thread, but I'm going to have to go.
Yeah. So Liz with the volunteers, she's going to be sort of involved with that, about sort of getting volunteers involved in the project. Because I think it really is important that, you know, as Sustrans volunteers, it's about really recognising the sort of the real and challenging and exciting work that we're getting into, and sort of the opportunities that can offer, you know, volunteers for getting involved in different ways, isn't it, Liz?
Yeah, and also just sort of linking in with other organisations who are doing stuff already. You know, you don't have to be a Sustrans volunteer to get involved in what we're doing. You know, it's about those sort of links. I'm a community development worker by, you know, my past life, and I think I'll always will be. And so just reaching out to those organisations who are doing brilliant work, just sort of linking up really, and sharing information and knowledge. Yeah, I'd be really happy to hear from anybody. I've got my email in the comments.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm wondering if maybe you can, at a future meeting, join us again in a future MCC.
I'd love to,
because I think that's and that could be, we could maybe more specifically dedicate a meeting to that issue, or maybe just have it, because I think it's sad, because that's kind of what we're about. In a way, yeah. And
I think as well, just keeping you updated on what we're doing, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think communication is really, really key, and sort of, and sort of just being aware of what each other's doing would be great.
Okay, are there any other questions for
just
Ali?
A quick one?
Sorry, go on, Don. Sorry.
Just a quick one, really. I think Ali and Liz both know the wealth of support that they get from Merseyside. For instance, there's a team of about a dozen volunteers who are out every day no exaggeration at the moment. They are out by themselves because of COVID, and they're maintaining the loop line, keeping it clear of litter, developing habitats. I'm one of them. I'm not the most active one. I hold my hand up to that. But there's a lot of people there, and hopefully some of those people will get involved with Lou Henderson's work, looking after the planters and such like that they've put in. So, you know, just a shout out if anybody wants to get along and help. We've got a Facebook page, contact Liz or Ali, and they can point you in the direction. But it's great work. Lots of us use that loop line. Lots of us go down and think, oh, isn't it nice and clean and tidy? Well, it ain't the bloody elves that's doing it, I can tell you that. Can I just say as well, there's a really good Sport England quote that somebody who works at Sport England told me when a while ago, that one volunteer helps 8 people get into an activity or an organisation, you know, volunteering. So it's really important. So I don't know how many people are here, 32, or each one of you can help 8 people get at least, probably lots more, just by being out there and being friendly and chatty and stuff. So it's really important. I'm going to have to go now. I don't want to leave.
Thanks, Liz. Can we just bring Simon in now, because Simon was come on.
Yeah, just obviously all good what you're saying, completely behind everything. But as someone who's had 3 bikes stolen off Bold Street in the area in which you're supposed to put your bike, which is not covered by any CCTV, I just wanted to raise that as a concern. You know, as we encourage and push our communities into cycling more, you know, bikes are not cheap, unfortunately. Some of the bikes I had stolen off Bold Street are £500 upwards. The bikes I have in the house here, you know, bikes are a bit awkward to store. Just a thought, really, just a consideration from yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah, I think that's and it's sort of comments like that when we're out asking people and having their say are really important and can sort of affect the design solutions as well. So I think it is important that we do hear those kind of comments, and then also too, you know, back to the local authorities too, to understand the issues and the problems. That's great. Thanks, Simon.
I think it is a hotspot on Bold Street. Sorry.
Yeah.
The police are aware there's a problem on Bold Street. I mean, to me, I think you could put a sting operation together very easily and probably catch, but I think it would still be an ongoing thing. Probably people coming outside of town to steal, and they're easy prey. They're sat there, you know. As I say, they can quite often be very expensive, upwards of £500, and I don't know anywhere in Liverpool I would feel comfortable leaving a bike now.
Right. Okay. That's a really good point. Thank you,
Simon. Just a question about the availability of bike parking on Bold Street. And I've made the point that we actually need more bike stands on Bold Street. There really aren't enough. I wonder if you'd agree with that. And can I also ask you, what were you locked to, and what sort of lock do you use?
I will put my hands up and say it was not the best lock. You know, again, locks can be very expensive. You know, an insurable lock is probably upwards of £50. They were outside fact. One got nicked while I was in Leaf, and I was having such a nice day. I'd traded in my PlayStation and upgraded it and stuff, and they just wanted to look over my old one. And I darted up to the top of Bold Street, wrapped the 2 bikes around a lamppost while I just sat in the window of a cafe, literally. And all it took was a quick distraction in the cafe, and I lost a GT Sportif, which was an £800 bike, and a Cannondale mountain bike of James, which was practically brand new, and that was £450, £500 bike, I think. So it turned out to be quite a heartbreaking day. As I say, wasn't really expecting to stay in town. I didn't know they needed to assess what I was trading in, and just took the opportunity to take some breakfast, and boom, the bike's on. And obviously, you just get that feeling, don't you, in the pit of your stomach? Not very nice at all.
I'm just looking for a take-home message. Do you think, I'm sorry about your loss, but do you think a D-lock would have helped save the day?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. It's weight, isn't it? I think was probably my thinking at the time. Just a little wire rope is just handy for those if you're darting in somewhere, you know, it's just a little deterrent, isn't it? But they'd cut it so cleanly. There's two of them, and one of them just stood in front of the young lad, and he tucked in behind and just snipped it, and they were gone. And must have took them all of about 30 seconds to do it.
The other thing about a D-lock is if you don't have like a Sheffield stand to lock it to and you lock into a lamppost, most D-locks don't go around most lampposts. So you'd be like locking a cable and then using the D-lock to lock the cable to your bike. So then they have to cut the cable, which is obviously easier.
There's some fantastic new locks out. I think they're called Silverlight. They have got the efficiency of a D-lock, but they're lighter and they're more maneuverable, and you can get them in varying lengths, and you can sort of like then put them around lampposts and what have you. I've got one, they're fantastic on the weight, and then you can actually wear them very snazzily as little belts if you just want to go out. So there's sort of lots of opportunities of how you can carry them on your bike. So they're fairly new out, I think, but they are expensive, but I've invested in one and it's been pretty good.
I'll keep an eye out.
Can I just say we've got quite a lot to do on the agenda. So if there's any more questions, because I think some of these, we might come back to some of this issue in a bit anyway. I'd like to say thanks very much to Ali for that. And you're more than welcome to sort of join back in again later on when we get sort of a bit of a debate later on. Next, I'd like to invite new cyclists from the Cycle of Life. We've got a few on today, and I do believe they were going to have a chat. Oh, thanks for that, Stu. So I believe they were going to have a chat offline. So I don't know if anyone wants to sort of volunteer to start speaking on behalf of the Cycle of Life. And I think we really want to know is we're talking about new cyclists here, and this is ultimately what we're about is getting more people cycling. And so I want to know what their experience is and what you know, and also want to know what we should be doing, you know.
Okay, Eddie, eBay's done a bit of a presentation, so I think he's just going to go through it and talk about a few of the new cyclists that he's been involved in this project over the coming year, or the last year, sorry.
Okay, yeah, however you want to do it, yeah. Okay, yep. Cheers, eBay.
Yeah, I think the bar of expectation has been raised quite high in this meeting with the previous presentation, so I'm not going to try and compete with them. I'm really happy to see so many people from Cycle of Life. I've actually counted about 10 people, and I know they organised a ride this morning and they've cancelled it to come to this meeting. So yeah, big up to the people from Cycle of Life, much appreciated. Just a little bit about myself, just very briefly. I used to cycle when I was younger with my dad, but then I stopped cycling for about 10 or 15 years. It wasn't until I had my own family that I started getting into cycling again, because I wanted them to get the same experiences as myself. But unfortunately, I struggled to get them into cycling because nobody else was cycling. They felt uncomfortable, so cycling to school, you know, just going to the shop cycling, they started refusing to go. So this really perturbed me, made me a bit concerned that I couldn't get my own kids to cycle. And I started doing a bit of cycle instruction in schools. I did the training to be a cycle instructor. Yeah, and I noticed a few things which made me scratch my head. A lot of the cycle instructors weren't from the local area, and a lot of the kids who they were working with, they sometimes had misunderstandings with them. So, for instance, there was a young girl, she had a headscarf on, and the cycle instructor told her that she'd have to take it off in order to put the helmet on to cycle. And I could see she's only about 12 years old, and I could see on her face that she wasn't happy about that. And it almost felt to me that she was kind of having to choose between cycling or her identity. So I didn't say anything to the instructor, but I just picked up on these little points because I was thinking, how can I get more people in our area to cycle? So I started the idea of Cycle of Life in about February. I went to a program called Active Citizens in the Cumber Omani Centre in Liverpool 8 in Toxteth. And I just wanted to get an idea of how I could get more people to cycle and make cycling more inclusive, more accessible to everyone. And a lot of the issues that when I spoke to people why they didn't cycle, you know, they'd never join a club. You know, joining a club, even myself, it felt like something that it wasn't really for me. It was like more kind of people of lycra and, you know, people who are very kind of committed to cycling. So I was thinking, how could I get a club which wasn't a club, just something where people could get together and just taste cycling, just try it out. So on the Active Citizens group, there was Shazia and Ed Goman. And Shazia was also thinking of a project to get more women into cycling. And Ed was had a project on infrastructure and quieter neighbourhoods around LA for cycling and walking. So yeah, I was around like-minded people. So I started a project, and then suddenly lockdown happened. So I thought, well, it's going to be difficult now to do any cycle clubs or cycle rides in groups because of the lockdown. So I had these donations of bikes, and I started giving bikes out to NHS workers and like key workers around the area, people who were struggling, who wanted to cycle to work. And we actually gave about 35 bikes out to key workers and, you know, people who were like youth workers and care workers, you know, people who could go door to door and use the bike instead of getting taxis. People were telling me they were saving like £40 a week just using a bike, and they were so happy that they were getting healthier, they felt safer, there wasn't too much traffic around the areas. So after the initial lockdown, a lot of people were saying to me, look, I don't feel confident on the road. So that's when we started doing our cycle rides. And, you know, so far we've had about 90 cycle rides, you know, various groups. So we've got like women-only groups, which, you know, more Shazia's focusing on with the Women on Bikes project. We've got family rides as well, which again has come from a demand from people wanting to cycle with their kids at the weekend, get them into cycling, get the husbands into cycling. I mean, Naheed can tell you about that. And even just kind of mixed groups of people who just want to get into cycling. People I've given cycles to who want to start cycling themselves. And then from there, we've been working with Cycle UK, who have really set us up as a proper community cycle club. And they've also set us up to do the Dr. Bikes. So I was working on the pop-up lanes to get more people cycling by repairing their bikes and looking after and telling them about Cycle of Life. And we repaired about 120 bikes. And we've also recently, through our work, we've actually got 2 containers in Liverpool 8 because there was no cycle pods in the area, and the council have got cycle pods, but they're in other areas. So the council have kindly allowed us to use their cycle pods. So people who haven't got bikes have been able to access bikes, especially in Calderstones Park. So initially we were Mossley Hill Hospital, where they had a pod, but now recently they've opened up the Calderstones Park. So it's been a really excellent project, and going forwards, I want to see some of our ride leaders. We've trained up about 6 ride leaders. We're planning to train up another 12. It's been really difficult in lockdown, but now we're planning to train up more and more cycle leaders because we've got such a demand and so many more. We've got about 4 or 5 cycle rides a week, and going forwards, we want to get instructors into schools from our local area who are working with the kids and then working with the parents as well, and get more people cycling to school, get more people cycling as a viable alternative to using their car or taxis or public transport. So basically, we're just trying to get more of our projects going. So I'm going to pass on to Shazia, who will tell you a bit more about Women on Bikes. So Shazia, are you available? You can come in now.
I'm just trying to off the speaker now. Can you hear me?
Hear you now, yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Shazia Chowdhury. I, like eBay said, we did Active Citizen course last year. and where I developed my idea about women on bikes. So my project was more focused on like more on women's health and well-being. So I just started this project, and I thought I'm going to target on women who are less likely to go on bike ride. So I started with the small numbers of women in March, and then there was a lockdown. I stopped. So during that lockdown period, I started to build my skills of cycling. So eBay helped me with he delivered the bike to me, to start in the park, so I can build my skills. Then after that, I started in August with a small group of women, about 5 or 6. And then it was like the demand it was just massive. So many people got interested, and so within about 3 months, I think there were like increased numbers up to 36 women. So I thought this is a very good project. It's like especially during COVID period, it was great impact on women's life. The most women came out, and they said this was like their lifetime opportunity. They never had this experience before, and it's just like it's so much fun during cycling. Like they just love it, and they say how better they feel, like mentally and physically. I think it's very positive feedback, which encouraged me to do more. So I'm just thinking to start maybe a walking group, women's walking group. As some women, maybe they prefer to walk rather than going on the cycle. One second, say.
Okay, thanks, Naheed. And sorry, Shazia, can we have Naheed now if she's available?
Sorry, we've got a video, eBay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Video about Naheed's experience. Yeah. Thanks.
Hopefully. Okay. Great. Okay, I'm just going to share it on my internet. Sorry, it's not loading now. Can everyone see that?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Yeah, we can see it. Can't hear it now.
Yeah, sorry, we can see the video, but we can't hear the video.
Okay, thank you. I'll do it again. Can you hear it now?
No, we can't, Stu.
No, Stuart, still can't hear.
Someone's written something in the chat that might be helpful. There's a button, so when you share a video over Zoom, there's a button you press in the shared screen bit which allows you to play the audio.
Say again, sorry.
Joanna said that when you show a video over Zoom, there's a button you press in the shared screen bit which allows you to play the audio.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a look. When you first share screen, there's that thing that comes up with the choice of screens to share. And at the bottom left, there's a tick box called Share Computer Sound, which you need to tick.
So I'm still looking for that little box. Share computer sound. Got it. Thank you for that. There we go. Let's try that.
Hi, my name's Nahid and I'm from Liverpool. When lockdown was first announced, I was more scared of being socially isolated than of the COVID-19 virus. I'm a full-time carer and I felt my life was quite lonely, and with lockdown it was going to become even more isolated. I started cycling on my own because the roads were much quieter, but that sense of isolation still didn't go. Through social media, I came across a community cycle group that was called Cycle of Life. They invited me to join their group of riders who go out every week. For me, that was a new lease of life. It was an opportunity and a chance to make new friends, see new things, and just do things and experience things that I hadn't before. For me, that was, it was a real big de-stressor. I suffer from anxiety and PTSD as well. So it's really helped me alleviate my symptoms. Because of me going out and the changes my husband noticed in me, he's decided to take up cycling as well. We've been married more than 30 years and we've actually never done any activity together. So for us both, this is something that we both look forward to. We both relish that time that we can spend together.
Just like to say one more thing. Even though I was the one who had the initial idea, this project's only been successful because of the volunteers who've participated in this project and made it what it is. They're so motivated, and it really inspires me as well. That once people get into cycling, get the bit between the teeth, there's no stopping them. And to be honest with you, I feel that our WhatsApp groups and our Zoom meetings, there's so much enjoyment that people are getting out of cycling. And I think it's just getting more people to taste cycling and try it out. And I think you'll see a real groundswell across the Liverpool City region of people who want to cycle and start actually campaigning and encouraging their local MPs to improve the cycling infrastructure. So I recognise infrastructure is really important, but I think it's also we need to focus on people as well. Because I think it's when people, just local, regular people who aren't cyclists per se, start speaking out, I think things will change pretty fast.
Thanks for that, Ebe. I was just wondering, are there any other people from Cycle of Life? There's a few other people from Cycle of Life here as well. Would any of them like to speak at all?
I can just echo what's already been said. Really, it's been a joy to be a part of Cycle of Life and to see new people come on board and stuff. And it's posed challenges I suppose none of us saw, and rewards maybe none of us anticipated. So it's been really, really fun to have met everybody who's been a part of it, and to have you guys as a network and Stuart's work and stuff. We are we are being encouraged, but I guess more could be done still. But it's good to know so many people are behind this.
Hi, it's Rachel. I reiterate what's been said really by eBay. I mean, I only started back on my bike maybe about 2 months ago. I haven't been on a bike since I was 14, and to be part of Cycle of Life, it just gives me that confidence to go on rides with them, and for me to even go out on my own. And they're very patient as well, and they really have built up my confidence where I never thought I'd even get on a bike by myself on the road. And we've done some really nice rides, and we've been able to see Liverpool in a completely different light as well. Because when you sat in a car and you're just going to work, you don't realise what's going on around you. So this has really made me love my city a bit more, because I can actually see how beautiful it is. but more than anything, the community as well. It's just brilliant. You know, our WhatsApp group, and when we have our meetings, and even when we just go on our rides, I just feel like I'm part of the group, and it's only been a short while I've been with them. So yeah, it's really changed my life, to be honest. So thank you, Cycle of Life.
Anyone else from Cycle of Life would like to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Nahid and I'm reiterating what everybody said, but one of the main things that has come to light for me with Cycle of Life, and that my husband as well has noticed over the last few weeks, is the distance that we go. You don't realise, like Rachel said, in a car, but what you don't realise on a bike is how far you actually can go and how quickly you can get there compared to being in, you know, on other transport. So I just want to reiterate that, you know, that's what I think we need to emphasize, that going on a bike doesn't mean that it's gonna take you any longer to get somewhere. It's actually much easier, and there's much easier routes to get to the destinations you want to. And I think that's what we really need to encourage, is cycling, not just for leisure, but also for other reasons as well, like work and education.
Yeah, what's interesting is all the different reasons people are coming up, and like, you know, we've got I mean, I've also suffered from anxiety as well, and I know that like exercise and getting out, really, especially under COVID, that was my biggest worry. I was the same. I was more worried about isolation under COVID than I was actually about the virus itself, and getting out on a bike was really, you know, really helped me a lot. And I was wondering about anyone else from Cycle of Life who hasn't had a chance to speak yet. I'd like to speak. No. I mean, I've got a general question, which is to the new cyclists: is what would you like? What would you want MCC, the cycle campaign, to do? What would you like us to be doing to help you, either whether it's get involved in the campaign, or just what would you like us to see doing, and what kind of thing would you see campaigning for?
Can I say something, Eddie? So I've been helping lead some of the rides, and I think that what's needed is to replicate what is happening here in other parts of the city. So to get funding to be able to train more ride leaders in other parts of the city to set up groups like this, because I think there is a real need and a real demand for this sort of group that just hasn't been happening up until now, because I don't know whether it's lack of funding or lack of people to actually be proactive to start things going. But I do breeze rides, lead breeze rides for starter rides as well, and I mean not on quite the same scale or speed that Cycle of Life have been doing, but over the last 2 years I've had quite a few women come along to those and borrow bikes from the Mossley Hill pod, and then go on and buy their own bikes and start cycling more. And again, we're not able to train more breeze leaders at the moment because Mossley Council isn't funding any of, you know, British Cycling or Cycling UK to actually train leaders at the moment. So we have got quite a low number of breeze leaders in Liverpool, and I know Cycling UK is starting to do more now, but that's not because the council are funding them, as far as I'm aware. It's coming from central government funding. So I think that would be one thing as a cycle campaign could do, is to try and encourage the council to actually get more ride leaders trained to run rides for people, because that's how people get into cycling, is having somebody take them on a ride, and that's how they gain confidence. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Okay, thanks for that, Helen. Yeah, I mean, I think from what Shazia was saying was interesting about the demand that she was, you know, that was actually there, that's out there. And so I think we're just scratching the surface really, and the amount of demand that might be out there. Yeah. Anyone else like to say anything about this?
Just a quick one, really, Eddie, to highlight what the council does. So we have this walking, an active travel forum for walking, cycling, and other sustainable means of transport. And I'd encourage everybody to perhaps get involved. And eBay knows about it, so he's speaking for Cycle Life. But it's an opportunity to promote what you do. I think we've I think what we're seeing here today is there's an awful lot going on around the city, some of it in isolation, but it shouldn't be. It needs to be brought out. And this is cycling for everyone. So here on this morning's meeting, we've got Ian Tierney, who's from Cycle Projects. So they're giving opportunities to less abled people to get out on bikes. And that happens even now as we speak, every week, just about, at a various number of places across Merseyside. So, you know, perhaps the council should be looking at throwing a bit of money that way. We've recently made contact with a chap, Ellis Harner, man with the beaming smile, as I call him. And Ellis lives on the Wirral, uses a hand cycle, and he's done a lot of PR for that group. And here in Liverpool, we've got Kay Inkle, who's a great representative, if you like, for looking and improving cycling. So when the cycle campaign was looking at the pop-up cycle lanes, we drew attention, as they did, and we pushed it forward, that these cycle lanes were not fit for purpose for all cyclists. So just going back to that active travel, there's a meeting coming up, and I'm sure we can put details of that on the website. I'm sure Slim can sort that out. And come along, and if need be, have your say, or just listen to what the council are proposing. Thank you.
So does anyone want to jump in there?
I think he's got microphone problems. So
no, it's all right. I think it might be working now.
He's here. He's here.
I put 10p in the meter. Yeah, thanks, John, and really, really good to hear the work that you're doing at Cycle of Life. I mean, it's amazing, and I really do just really emphasise the need that local people inspire local people. That's the bottom line, and I think it's really, really good that, you know, in a local community, people are being inspired by others, and I think in my experience that's the best way. It really is the best way. It's genuine, it's sincere, and it means that people keep at it. So just want to pick up really on some of the Wheels for All stuff that we've been doing really, and Don mentioned it just then. One of the things that we've noticed in lockdown, obviously one of the biggest issues was that disabled people were not able to travel freely, and a lot of people, CEOs of charities such as MenCap, the Brain Charity, Stick and Step, were all really concerned about people in their care. Some are, you know, scary, like 80% of their regular users were just disconnected. They were more isolated than ever before. I suppose what we realised then was we had almost a duty of care to reach out and to take our normal Wheels for All setting, which is a park or athletics track or MCN, and take it to the front door of the disabled person. And so really what we're going to be doing in 2021 is some really engaging pieces of work whereby we're working with the likes of, as I say, Liverpool MenCap, the Brain Charity, and we're taking a whole package to the disabled person's front door, and we're designing a whole way of them riding with other people, like-minded people, so that they can complete a journey. And this did come out of the rush of pop-up infrastructure, which was, you know, completely honest, no good for a lot of people we engage. And what we want to do is give these people a platform, or the people we work with a platform, to feed back to the council and to say, this is the route I want to take because it meets my needs. And really start shoehorning people into infrastructure that's been just hastily put in place. So in 2021, there's going to be really a few new initiatives that will get disabled people at the core of decision making and building packages around their needs. So it's quite exciting, and we're looking forward to working with everyone here. Alder Hay will be a big partner of ours in 2021 for a couple of years. We'll be putting in place a disability programme on the ground to Springfield Park, and that will just infuse individuals to be active, and their families and their carers and their OTs to be active and to do it with them. So I think in these crazy times, these challenging times, that there are a few silver linings that are coming out, whereby we're really encouraging people to be active from their doorstep. So really happy to share what we're doing with people on the chat and beyond today as well. So thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Ian. I think that's great, and I think just as follow up on what Dom was saying about active travel network, there's an active travel network for Liverpool, for Wirral, but we're also pushing the combined authority, so the Liverpool City region, to have an active travel network as active travel forum, an active travel forum as well. And I think that forum will be basically, you can kind of, it's like a meeting that they host, but I think one of the things that we obviously need as well to complement that is these as Ian was saying, like, your local people inspire local people, as we've seen from Cycle of Life. And I think that kind of leads us quite nicely into the cycling advocacy network. So who'd like to take up that? Is that you, Stuart?
Yeah, I'm just going to introduce Jen and that, if that's okay. Let me get my thing here. So yeah, on the back of that, I'd just like to say, yeah, it's amazing what people are doing out there, and they're doing it on nothing, more or less. They're all volunteers, and I think that's a huge gap. We're getting all the money on infrastructure, but you can see what influence a kind of small bit of funding can have on people's lives, and how encourage people to get involved. So I think that's definitely something to take up with the Active Travel Forum. But yeah, a little bit of introduction about myself again. Yeah, I'm Cycling Development Officer for the Liverpool City region. My work is primarily focused on two programmes, delivering the Big Bike Revival, which we've seen this year. There's been 4 lots of Big Bike Revivals, very unusual, and developing community cycle clubs. So this year, the Big Bike Revival has funded 4 successful programmes across the Liverpool City region, supporting key workers, doing loads of bike loans earlier on in the year, then pop-up Dr. Bike events on popular commuter routes, which is amazingly interesting and really popular. Especially when the bike shops are really chocker and you can't get your bikes booked in there. Engaging workplaces, and we're trying to develop a cycle-friendly employer network as well. So if anyone has any links there, that'd be great. And another bit of Big Bike Revival is now going into schools with big bikeability providers. So we're covering a load of different things there through Big Bike Revival. But despite a challenging year for the community cycle clubs, we basically had 1 community cycle club at the beginning of the year. We now have 5. And we have 3 more close to completion, which is pretty amazing considering the year hard when cycling has risen and then maybe gone down a bit, and then community cycling has really suffered. So something like Cycle Life has really been a flagship project, and it just shows you the needs and the sense of community that it has developed from lockdown, I think, and people's focus on different aspects of their life. So, but that's not our only function as Cycling UK. One of our core functions is campaigning. For 140 years they've been doing it, and it represents the interest of our members, plus all of the current cyclists, or maybe would-be ones. So we have some campaign officers who work to influence decision makers at the highest levels in government, but we also have a volunteer network of volunteers who protect and improve cycling for the local community. And in October, we set up something new called the Cycle Advocacy Network, which aims to bring together people with shared interests, creating conditions to enable more people to cycle, basically, and basically improve the infrastructure, get more infrastructure, and improves the environment on the roads. So they are sharing information with each other, basically acting as a channel between local campaigns and having a national forum and basically expertise around the country and seeing what's going on there. And the whole aim of it is to provide a louder and more effective voice for those who cycle already, or those who might. So on that note, I'd like to introduce Jen Graham, who's recently volunteered to become our regional coordinator. If you bear with us, this has only been going like 2 or 3 weeks in the whole point of it, but would like to propose some campaigns for the Mayside Cycle campaign and just locally that we can all focus on for the next year in Liverpool City region in 2021. So over to you, Jen.
Yeah, thank you, Stu. So I'm just going to try and share my screen as well. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay, so can you all see the screen? Yeah, great. Okay, so yeah, as Stu just mentioned, we're a very new team. And as Ed mentioned at the start, we want to be working with other organisations on campaigns. So I'm going to present 5 ideas that we have for campaigns in 2021. So some of the ideas are not new, and many of which have also been mentioned already today in discussions and in presentations. So many of you are already going to be involved in campaigning for these ideas. So if that does happen to be the case, we'd love to chat with you and find out how we can support the work that you've already been doing. So at this point in time, the ideas are fairly basic. The original plan that I had was that we'd ask you all to vote for your favourite ideas. And then, you know, focus on those ideas, pool our resources, and then flesh out the details over time. But in listening to everyone today, I really feel as though I just want to contribute these for discussion, really. So a lot of the campaign ideas will be Liverpool-centric at this point in time, solely due to the fact that those of us involved in the Cycling Advocacy Network, so that's myself, Annette and Dan, we all live and work in Liverpool. So we don't want this to always be the case, and we're very mindful of the need to expand campaigns to other areas of the Liverpool city region. So just bear with me. Okay, so these are the 5 headings for the ideas that I'll be going through. So we've got safety, security, I think, Simon, you're going to appreciate that one. Lobbying, active travel, and design. So I'll go through each one at a time. Okay, so safety, I think we can all agree that this is the most important concern for cyclists. We simply want safer experiences on the roads. So based on data from the Walk and Cycle Merseyside campaign, from 2014 to 2018, Liverpool was the worst metropolitan borough for cyclist casualties. So that's those who were killed or seriously injured. So you might know the acronym KSI for that. And Merseyside was also the 5th worst for child cyclists in that time period. So we've got a number of campaign ideas to improve safety measures on the roads. We'd like to see dedicated resources to enable the police force to deal with road traffic incidents involving vulnerable road users. So Dan himself was recently knocked down, so this is an important thing, I think, for him. We want to see a road awareness campaign targeting drivers and promoting walking and cycling safety. We want to campaign councils to provide a specific number of cameras to cyclists who use popular routes, so wearing cameras on their body or mounting them on their bikes. We want to see bike buses on busy commuter routes, and we want to campaign for increased cycle awareness training for bus companies, taxis, and LGV drivers. Okay, security. So Simon, you'll like this one. And also personally, this is something that I've come up against. So as a fairly newbie cyclist, whose bike has become a main form of transport, the thought of parking my bike in the city centre just makes me shudder. I just don't want to do it. I'm really put off by it. So we all at the very least know of someone whose bike's been stolen, and we've heard Simon and Jane had theirs stolen on Bold Street. So based on data from November 2019 to October 2020, Liverpool is 29th out of 104 postcodes for bicycle thefts. There are approximately 1,200 reported bike crimes in that period. So as we know, there's already bike parking in the city, but we don't think it's enough. We've got Liverpool One's state-of-the-art cycle store with 50 bays. It's free to use, but can only be accessed by a fob. There are the city bike stations, which are technically only for city bikes, but we've all seen the odd bike locked up on them. Merseyrail stations, where there are 61 secure cycle storage sheds at 56 locations, but technically, again, they're only for passengers of Merseyrail. And then the sporadic Sheffield bike stands dotted around the city centre. These leave bikes exposed and vulnerable. And at the moment, there doesn't seem to be any kind of map for these stands online, or at least not one that I've found easily. So this is a map showing bike theft comparison in Liverpool with the national average. And as you can see, we're all now very aware, especially in the city centre, there's a big problem with bike thefts, even with a state-of-the-art bike storage in Liverpool 1. So we think it's in the council's interest to find solutions to the problem of bike thefts. We want to campaign Liverpool City Council to build and maintain secure cycle hubs and hangars at prominent locations within the city centre, as well as encourage communities to campaign their council for cycle shelters on their streets and in their neighbourhoods. And this should ultimately lead to the public seeing the council's intention to improve bike security, and we hope encourage more people to cycle into the city centre and feel safe parking their bikes. So lobbying, we want local politicians to support cycling and active travel, and we want them to be for us, not against us. We want them to take pride in committing to transforming the region for those living and working within it. So we'd like to conduct a 5-month letter writing campaign from January to May in anticipation of the local elections on the 6th of May 2021. The elections will include the Metro Mayor, the Liverpool City Council Mayor, although that might be a little bit sooner, local councillors and Police and Crime Commissioner. So as well as a letter writing campaign, we want to organise active travel hustings events in communities. And our role, really, to an extent, is to hold our leaders to account for the promises they've made. So active travel. We want to develop a better consultation process between combined and local authorities to develop closer links. There's a lack of local revenue support for community organisations and projects around active travel. So it'll also help increase awareness of the benefits of transitioning to low or zero carbon. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see some simple ways that investment in active travel could bring about big changes, such as supporting cycling initiatives in schools and workplaces, and working with local businesses to improve awareness of the benefits of active travel. So we want to campaign for more consultation within communities. As we've heard already, we want to have livable neighbourhoods. We want streets for people, not vehicles, and we want our communities to be listened to. So we've heard from eBay, from Cycle of Life, and how much their cycle club is transforming lives, including my own. One of my first experiences recently of getting on the bike was being involved with Cycle of Life. So I just want to thank eBay for that opportunity. Cycle clubs help to break down barriers to cycling for many people. So these clubs are being funded through revenue funding through charities such as Cycling UK. And we want to campaign for revenue funding directly from local government rather than central government, and to be used to support and develop community cycling clubs and local cycling initiatives. So we heard from Helen earlier about her working with Breeze Rides as a cycle leader. And Helen told me that there's been a big uptake during lockdown and they don't have the funds to train more leaders. So if they could have more leaders, then Breeze could have more led rides and encourage more women to have confidence to cycle more. And we've already heard from Shazia, who's doing a great job. And I believe the more, the merrier. So any group that encourages more women to ride, more diversity, more inclusion should be supported and should have access to revenue funding. So the last one, design. We want the implementation of better design standards across all infrastructure. We want decision makers, engineers and transport planners to cycle and understand the problems that are faced. And we want low traffic neighbourhoods, a commitment to funding flagship projects from our leaders. So as many of you may be aware, recent road designs to improve walking and cycling safety are not fit for purpose, such as the Princes Avenue Boulevard that recently went up, Regent Street, Windle Island, and we just don't want this to continue. It's not good enough. So we'd like to campaign for councils to implement the sustainable transport hierarchy in all future engineering designs, where pedestrian needs come first, followed by cyclists, public transport and private vehicles. And finally, we want to campaign for a commitment to Vision Zero, resulting in a year-on-year decrease in pedestrian and cyclists killed or seriously injured. And so that's it. So thank you all for listening. Originally, as I said, I wanted you all to cast some votes, but as I said, I think it'd be really nice for us to use these as maybe starting points for a discussion, if that is the plan. So yeah, thanks guys.
Fantastic, cheers Jen. I've just added a doodle poll to the chat there.
Okay,
So
I'll just stop sharing so that we can all access.
Yeah, if everyone could have a look at that and get on there and vote, and we're going to vote for 3 campaigns that we're going to focus on next year, so pick your favourites. Exciting.
Are we going to do that now, or?
Yeah, if you could do it now, yeah, you know, yeah. And we'll reveal the results at the end.
Okay, I've done mine. So yeah, in the meantime, if anyone's got any questions or comments or thoughts, it'd be really lovely to hear.
Is that presentation available anywhere?
It's on Google Drive, so I can post a link which will give everyone access to it that way. Is that all right?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, okay.
Just a quick question for Stuart. Is this following on from the net, or what do they call it? The right to ride rep type?
It is. It's basically an evolution of the right to ride. Yeah, and also seen as Cycle Nation, it seems to have evaporated. It's a very, you know, it's a well-needed resource. So yeah, I think if we could promote it as much as possible, it's an important thing that we, you know, we could do. And it's also opportunity as well, you know, rather than that crest of the wave and getting all that, you know, everybody being interested in cycling and walking now. There's a lot of issues and a lot of expertise around the country that we can access as well. So it's, yeah, I think it's very relevant. So yeah, please share.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, just like to say, yeah, I think everything you said, Jen, is we would support it. I mean, I'm interested to see the result of the poll, but I think, yeah, I mean, we'd probably support all of those things, and they're all important. They all cross over, don't they, as well?
Yeah.
I guess the question I've got is similar to, because you're also a new rider as well, aren't you? Quite a new rider. And is similar question to what I was asking Cycle Life is what can the cycling campaign do? Because, you know, that's what we're about, is campaigning, and you're campaigning. So it's, how do we fit in? How do you see how we could fit in with what you're trying to campaign for?
So from a personal perspective, it's been a learning process, going around on my bike, because normally I would walk everywhere, very rarely take public transport. So it's really expanded my experience of the city, and because of that, you know, there's been things that I have felt has been lacking. So I'm really pleased with all the new cycle infrastructure, because one of the things that was actually putting me off cycling in Liverpool was a lack of safety on the road. So I lived in Vietnam for 3 years, and I would ride a motorbike across Ho Chi Minh City every day for 18 months. So I'm quite used to dealing with traffic, but being on a bike in Liverpool was really, it was quite overwhelming. So I feel like, you know, there is progress, but in particular, I think the bike security, cycle storage or cycle security would be an important thing for me, just to fully embrace the cycling experience. I'm really put off parking my bike anywhere. So I tend to just go on journeys where I'm going to a specific location, like visiting a friend, more or less, really. So, or just going on a bike ride with friends and then getting back to mine.
I would applaud everything you said as well, Jenny. And I think the cycle campaign in many ways has touched on all 5 of those areas. You can see behind my head here, we produce these gilets to promote the cycle campaign, obviously, but also to make it safe. And these, I don't know, we produced, I think we made 50 of them, and we gave them away to members, new members coming onto the cycle campaign. You know, perhaps that's something else we can do, and stick the logo of CUK on as well.
Yeah.
But I think the 15, the Made to Move Merseyside that Eddie put together and others, I think it encompasses everything that you've been talking about, and perhaps, you know, promoting that as well within the city. I think it's just rattling the Liverpool City region to such things, and obviously the resources now that CUK have given that you're in a volunteer position, but the resources of a larger organisation is not, you know, what perhaps we've been able to do in a volunteer organisation.
Yeah, I'd like to see this sort of how our Made to Move Merseyside campaign could kind of fit in with your campaign, and so that it sounds like we're not so they kind of, even just things like having, you know, the same name or having the same list or whatever, or whatever, just comparing them and so that it sounds like we're sort of saying the same thing, I guess.
Well, I don't see us kind of replicating campaigns with the type of work that we're going to be doing. I see us more as supporting campaigns that are already happening, and also, you know, with the Cycling Advocacy Network. So I'm the regional coordinator, and we've got Annette and Dan, who are local representatives. And so we are wanting to grow a network of local representatives within the Liverpool City region, people who are on the ground, cycling often, you know what's going on, know the barriers to cycling. And so it's just about all working together as a network with the same goals, really. You know, we just want to get more people on the roads and for the roads to be safe. And so, yeah, I think, I don't want us to start creating something that's already established. I'd really like us to support what you're already doing.
Jennifer?
Yes?
Could I just compliment you on your ability to cycle in what I felt was the most dangerous traffic of any city I've ever been in, Saigon.
Yeah, I lived there for 1.5 years before I even tried, so don't think too highly of me.
Well done for trying. Can I just say that I applaud everything you've said. I think that the issue we're talking about, because we have cycling infrastructure, yeah, it's dire in parts of Regent Road. The whole concept of Princess Park Boulevard, you know, which could be blissful, but you can't access it, you know, etc. You know, wherever you look, it's being tried, it's being implemented. You know, bike stands, but they're not in the right places, and there aren't enough of them. So what we need is standards. We need everything that our council does for cycling to adhere to at least a minimum standard, and at the moment it doesn't.
Yeah, I think Stu knows quite a bit about design standards. Stu, if you...
Well, I can add to what Simon said yesterday on the Sustrans. I can't remember what it's about now. It was about workplaces, so the growth platform that Sustrans run. He was talking and saying that all cycling infrastructure will have those standards. But I think for the wider, you know, when you're talking about the low traffic neighbourhoods and other things like that, it's all implementation and having that overall integrated strategy for standards. That's what we need, and that's what we're asking for. We're not asking for just cycle infrastructure, because it's also walking and it's active travel, and the levels of safety and air pollution that are affecting people within Liverpool City region is extremely high, and just cycling won't address that. And I think it's important to be aware of that, even though, you know, it's always great to encourage it and certainly make it better. Have more cyclists on the road will make it safer. It's not the be all and end all.
Could I say that SUVs alone produce more pollution than all the power stations in the UK?
Yeah.
Good. But I was just wondering if Annette or Daniel would like to come in, because you're also in the network as well.
Can I just quickly add, sorry, Ed,
Simon.
about you know, wasted resources and infrastructure not being done properly. One of the best examples of it I've seen is here, well, on the Wirral. The 56 route and the 82 route, fantastic, yeah, brilliant routes. They don't link back to Chester. They don't come back down the A41 effectively. The cycle route that's on the A41 that links Newbrighton to Chester is absolutely dire, as Derek's pointed out. Some of the infrastructure, it's all on the pavement, so it doesn't prioritise cyclists. At every single residential junction you get to, you have to stop if you're going to use that cycle lane.
Yeah, it seems to be a constant concern that everybody's having, is that even though they are putting it in, I mean, they do have a bit of an excuse, I guess, with the current money is being rushed through. But even when they have time to do it, it's the infrastructure is not actually well designed, and that's just got to improve. That's got to improve across the board. And I think that's maybe even gets into the lack of skills. You know, as you said earlier on, one of the first things you said, Simon, was that you worried that if the money does come, will it even be spent properly? And I think standards are one thing, but I have to say, I mean, I work as a planner and designer, and I know that there's been standards like things like, you know, for highway design have been around for years, and Liverpool City Council and all of it just ignore them. You know, there's lots of guidance out there that they just ignore, and I see it again and again. New roads being put in with huge sweeping curves that you can go around the corner in third gear, and you know, that was supposed to be designed out, you know, in guidance that's 15-20 years old, was saying that you shouldn't be doing that, you know. And so it's really, I think we've got a real battle of trying to change the culture, I think, of design, and I think and it can get into quite nitty gritty stuff, but it's not all of it can be understood, and I think that's one of the things when we do campaign about design, and I think also linking it with Liverpool streets, you do get into these sort of nitty gritty things about, well, you know, how wide should a pavement be, and how narrow, how tight should a corner be, and I think, but we do need to get on top of this issue, so because when they do put stuff in and spend a lot of money on it, we want it to be right, don't we? Yeah. Sorry. I mean, we could just get over to Annette and Daniel, so if they want to have a talk about.
Hello. Well, I think Jen's outlined it all really well. I suppose just a few points that have come from the discussion afterwards, and a few reflections. I was thinking about how for me, security hasn't felt the most important of these campaigns, but actually, so I'm not new to cycling, but I think over the years, so since I was 18, I've had 5 bikes stolen. And after the first one, which was a newish bike, like I'd bought it new, I've never bought a new bike. I'm very happy with a bike that doesn't look very desirable, which isn't, I suppose, the solution. It's the solution most people want. Most people would like to be able to buy the bike that they like and use it without worrying it's going to be nicked. I do have a D-lock. You mentioned about your high-vis vests that you were giving out, which is great. And this is another thing that was interesting coming out of discussion with Dan and Jen. I do not care what I look like when I'm cycling. It is literally, it's one of my lowest priorities, and I'm very happy with a high-vis vest that I can just take off as soon as I get wherever and stuff it in a pocket. But there are other people who actually care a lot more about that, and I suppose particularly people who are new to cycling, to get them on board with it, it has to be something sort of desirable to them. So working with the newer groups of cyclists on what they would be comfortable wearing, what sort of high-vis or reflective safety wear is desirable, acceptable to them, is probably worthwhile. I mean, I love your vests, and I've got a similar one, so it's not an issue for me. There's one other thing. Do you have anything to add?
Not on this, no.
No, anything. Oh, well, I was going to ask about the design. How do you think then we should best campaign to improve that? Is it trying to consult with the people who are actually building the roads, or is it at a political level, or something else?
Personally, I think it's probably both of those things. I mean, we are working on politicians, and we also work on the officers as well. And I think one of the points that's come up again and again is that the areas should be designed by the people who live there. So that's one way of actually bringing in, I mean, because there is actually a lack of expertise in the councils, I think, of how to do this. So bringing in organisations like Sustrans or others to work on projects, that can at least mean that when they produce a design for an area, a livable neighbourhood, that it does have good design built into it. That's one way of doing it. But the thing is, we need it to go beyond that, because livable neighbourhoods will only ever be a small proportion of, well, for the foreseeable future, will be a small proportion of other stuff they will do. Like when they're just redoing roads, they should redo them better. Every time they allow a planning application to come in and someone has to actually alter the highway for whatever reason, like to accommodate new traffic going into a supermarket or whatever it is, or whatever people are doing, they should be thinking about walking and cycling when they do that. They shouldn't be thinking about walking and cycling only when there's a walking and cycling project. They should be thinking about walking and cycling in every project they do. And so I think working. I mean, trying to get a good design guide is good, and trying to get. But like I said, there is guidance out there already that they ignore. So you've got to try and get them on top of this idea that guidance. They have to actually look at it. And the problem is you're getting into the culture of the actual organisation, and we've got to try and. I guess we've got to try and surround them. It's trying to change the culture. We've got to surround them. This is why we want to work with politicians, officers, like-minded groups, the general public, the media. So eventually this just becoming businesses, so that effectively it just becomes part of the expectation and understanding kind of starts to grow. I mean, I think you were saying from Holland originally, and that, I mean, I guess in Holland it's just people just have an understanding of, it's part of the culture, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I only lived there for a few months as a baby, but we do go back to see family, and yeah, I'm sure every trip's involved some cycling, and yeah, it is a very different culture. I'm interested by what was it called? Not Just Bikes or something. The Canadian man who moved to Holland. I watched some of those YouTube videos. But yeah, I remember my granddad multiple times, more as like a driving lesson, who would say, the cyclist is always right. The cyclist is always in the right, whatever you do. So as a driver, the cyclist, if you hit a cyclist, it will be your fault. Almost certainly legally. So it's quite different atmosphere there.
I have a question for Annette. Do you think that we should have our own joint cycle infrastructure design and ratification team. And the objective should be that you don't need to wear a high-vis vest.
I feel underqualified to answer the question. It sounds great. Jen, what do you think, seeing as you're more fashionable than I? Should that be a priority? But you mean make it so safe that it's not necessary?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. If you were mostly off-road, you wouldn't need it, would you?
In Holland, I never wore a high-vis vest.
No.
There's also obviously like a lot of brands out there as well where you can buy like reflective clothing from. So expensive, and as Annette mentioned, I do like to look good, you know. So I have been checking them out, but really beyond my price range. So any excuse to not have to wear a high-vis vest is a good excuse for me. Although I do understand they are very important. So yeah.
I like to think of the high-vis vest for the person that insists on wearing dark clothing with no lights. If nothing else, give him a bloody high-vis vest. Other than that, I don't advocate them. I don't wear one very often myself because I consider that I'm bright enough. Just going back to what we do, looking at what CAN says on the website, or CUK sort of suggest, you've got this letter writing idea for 6 months from next May, was it? I think, I'm not sure. But I mean, that is, I've always been pushing for members to bang on the door of the local council surgery. Okay, we can't go and see them at the moment, but we can certainly write to them. I had response from Kim, gosh, can't even remember her name now, but our local MP, and very supportive, as indeed was our last MP, whose name eludes me for the moment, but we've had her speak at past events with the cycle campaign. But I think it's a mix. It's a mix of both letter writing, talking to politicians, and in the report that I did for the group, it's direct action sometimes, and we've done that a number of times with a number of the groups that are represented here today and local groups. How effective? Don't know, but we've certainly made the radio, we've made the local newspapers. So it's a combination of everything, but it is obviously working with the city. It's all about behaviour change, isn't it? It's what Ali alluded to in her presentation, carrot and stick. You're not going to get people out of a car straight away. You've got to show them the benefits, if not for them, for their children.
Yeah, just to add to that on, there might be some funding towards a hustings from Cycling UK. So I think it would be great because it's the mayoral candidate election as well. So I think, you know, that letter writing, that campaigning, I know Annette was on about going to see MPs and councillors and other things like that as well. So I think that'd be brilliant. But yeah, if we could have some hustings for a change, and active travel hustings, I think that'd be an amazing idea. You know,
yeah.
That halfway through the year and ride on this crest of the wave that we're on. I think it's really important to stay on top of that and get over a lot of these ideas, which maybe aren't getting always filtered in. Well, I think we got some results in the poll anyway, so I think Jen might want to go through some of that.
Okay, so I'll start from the top and go down. So the most voted for was safety with 16 votes, followed by design with 14 votes, and active travel with 13 votes. So they're our top three. And the other two had 10 votes each. If anybody needs the link to that Google Doc, just send me a direct message and then I'll just send that over to you if you've missed it on the chat.
Okay, we've actually been going now for nearly 2.5 hours. It's been a long, we've been doing this a long time now. I mean, it doesn't feel like a long time. I think it's flown by personally. I think it's been really fascinating and been really interesting presentations and really interesting discussions. I think we probably need to move on to the business part of the meeting fairly soon, because we just have to get things done. And but I was just wondering if anyone has any sort of other remarks to make before we actually kind of wind up this. I'm not sure how to actually conclude this. I mean, I think it's kind of, that's probably, we just have to guess, we just have to stop and move on, really. So is there any other remarks that people like to make? I've not heard, I don't think we've heard, a few people haven't really had a chance, haven't really said anything yet. So if they want to speak, if, you know, anyone wants to say? No. Okay.
If I have spoken, I know, but could I just get people's attention to the United Nations SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals? Liverpool has signed up to this big time, and they've pledged to support these. And there's an organisation called the 2030 Hub, which is moving this forward for them. And cycling plays a part in that. We've heard about this morning about health, inequality, etc. And all these are within the Sustainable Development Goals. So, you know, perhaps a bit of homework for everybody. Go out later on and just try and find out about these and go to the 2030 Hub. But it's something else we can, it's the carrot and stick, isn't it, really? Liverpool City Council have signed up to this, or the Liverpool City region. And when they say, oh, well, we can't do this, we can't do that, and you say, well, hang on, you've said you're going to do this on a number of counts. So I'll finish there.
Okay, well, if we finish there, then
Could I chuck in one more idea? It's just brief,
yeah,
food for thought, and it just come to mind. You know, the National Cycle to Work Day. I was just checking when it is, and it's the 5th of August. So I was just thinking, I wonder if we could, because it's, you know, it's plenty of time, whether we could build towards making it a cycle to work week. I've tried to get colleagues to do this in the past, and even myself, like I often cycle to work, but sometimes that day is not convenient. But we could make it a whole week's worth, and maybe for Liverpool,
yeah,
that says a month.
National Bike Week is a week now, and the Cycle Campaign have done a number of events, but certainly not for 2 or 3 years. But in fact, it's probably more than that, because I used to do it when I was working at John Moore's. And I used to organise with a cafe in Bold Street for a biker's breakfast. We got a good deal. The Cycle Campaign always offered to pay for it, but I always got the City Council to pay for it. So yeah, I'm certainly support you behind that, Annette.
Okay, I think I'd just like to make, I think it's great. I think I'd just like to make sort of final remarks on this part of the meeting. We've got obviously ourselves, my cycling campaign with Greenpeace on Sustrans. We've got Cycle for Life, New Cyclists. We've got the Cycling Advocacy Network, and I think that we are all working together, as well as many other groups like Friends of the Earth, who've also been very supportive. And I think that actually is this sort of event today, where we're actually communicating with each other, and we will be having others. You know, obviously we have meetings every month, and there'll be active travel forums. And I think if we keep working together, then we can be supporting what each other are doing. And you know, I don't think there's any need to worry too much about duplication. I think actually doing the same thing is actually okay, but we can work together to we sort of amplify each other's voices. And I think we're kind of coming from different, sort of doing different things, but we're all sort of working for the same things, to making cycling and walking, you know, a normal part of our life, with benefits, with health benefits, social benefits, economic benefits, environmental benefits. It's what we all want. And I think, you know, I just like to say, you know, I'm going to hand over to Don now to get to the more business side of the MCC stuff, of the AGM. And I'd just like to thank everybody for their contributions. They've been absolutely brilliant. And I hope to see you all again soon. So I'll just hand over to Don. And you're more than welcome, of course, to stay for the next bit, because there's some officers officers to be elected and reports and things like that. So yeah, you're more and more welcome to come for the next, stay for the rest of it. Okay.
I think I'm going to have to go, guys. It's my dad's birthday today. So, but